Okay, well, we're going to try to develop a protocol for teaching QGIS or Quantum GIS to folks who haven't had a formal education necessarily, but are interested in using it to help with projects for their communities. And we're working with the High Atlas Foundation in Marrakesh, and they in turn have projects throughout the High Atlas Mountains down here. And QGIS, being open source and free, is a powerful tool to use and works very well in the NGO environment or in areas where stakeholders don't have access to something like ArcGIS Pro. Usually it's universities and other institutions, or it's corporations or businesses that have the ArcGIS Pro license purchase capability. Most people don't. So QGIS is a great tool, but it's more complex to set up, and it really requires the installation of a lot of plugins, as you can see. So I was asking ChatGPT for this project where we want to do topography and distance measurement for looking at agroforestry plots and water filtration and biodistrict placement and stop water pollution from clothes washing soaps that contaminate the rivers, how you would get QGIS set up to immediately start working with. And it gave a nice breakdown of what the key plugins for the kind of tasks that we want are. The first one is Quick Map Services, and you can see that I've installed them all, but I want to show you how you do it. You go to Plugins, and then you can use this list to Quick Map to get Quick Map Services in there. So that's the one there, and then you install it from down here. Mine's already installed. They're all installed now. So that's a good one. And then you see that the next one is MMQGIS, and I've never heard of that before. So MMQGIS doesn't come in when you type it in capital letters. You have to do it in small letters, and that's a plugin. So that's how I found it. When I tried to do it with capital letters, it did not come in. So you might get flummoxed by that. All right. So use small letters and type it all in, and it will come in there. MMQGIS. So there's that. Then it asks us to get rid of that. Then it asks us to install two different programs, which is interesting. You see that it's asking for Saga and GrassGIS. And Saga is its own standalone GIS system, but it has powerful tools, and that's why people like to use it. What chat tells us about Saga is that Saga is the system for automated geoscientific analysis, a must-have for terrain analysis, water flow modeling, and suitability assessments, crucial for analyzing topography in agroforestry and water filtration projects. So I had to go to the Saga website. Now it is free, and download from SourceForge. I did Saga 9, and when I did that, I got a program. There's Saga, and it is its own GIS mapping system, and I've never used it before, and I don't know as I'll have to use it, because I think QGIS can bring it in via a plugin. I'm not sure yet, but I'm keeping Saga just in case, and they should be able to talk to one another because it's got simulations and geostatistics and terrain analysis. So it is very powerful for that, and so I'm going to have that available to me. And then the next one is asked for is GrassGIS, and GrassGIS, as chat tells us up here, offers powerful tools for hydrological analysis such as watershed delineation, slope calculations, stream network analysis, crucial for water pollution mitigation efforts. So I went to GrassGIS, and it says once you're familiar with GrassGIS, how it works and what it offers, you'll ask yourself how you could live without it before. So a very friendly community environment, a very powerful tool. So we want to harness that power. And there's newcomer tutorials, so we'll begin to get into that, but I've installed that, and once again, it is a program, GrassGIS, that is very much like QGIS. It's its own standalone open source GIS program. And it's good to have this. And that's the thing, is there's a lot of different tools out there, and these are the ones that are recommended: QGIS, Saga, and GRASS. And when you look for Saga here, there is a plugin called Processing Saga Next Gen Provider. You have to manually install the Saga 9.1 binaries. I'm using 9.6. Don't know if that'll work or not. We will see. There's a archaeological tool here. Why that comes up when you type in Saga, I do not know. But so I haven't installed that one. But I did install GRASS GIS, so I have that as recommended. Now the next thing that is recommended is Demo to 3D. And Demo to 3D is not that important unless you have a 3D printer and you want to make things. And for our project, working in villages, working in remote areas, sometimes it might be nice to have a printout of a terrain that people can walk around and touch, like an architectural model. So one can work in an environment where you don't necessarily have electricity at some time, you don't have a screen or a computer or projector, so you could bring a print so you can start pointing things out. So that's Dem to 3D, and with Dem to 3D, that was an easy plugin to find. Dem to 3D, there it is right there. And it creates STL files out of digital elevation maps. That can also be brought into things like Blender and other modeling programs. So probably good to have that one in there, as I do. And then we come back here, and the next plugins that they suggest are QNeat 3, and that is great for doing distance analysis. So I've already been working with that since a couple days ago. But QNeat 3 network analysis, this is if you want to look at the shortest path to different service areas, from the villages to hubs where there's resources, or to the central office. So this is really about distance and good ways to solve distance problems. That's very powerful and very useful. I've used that. Now QGIS to 3GS is for 3D visualization, and that is really powerful. You can see, even if I close this and I'm looking at, say, the village of Armid up here in the mountains, you can see that when I go to this plugin, QGIS to 3GS Exporter, it's this triangle showing 3 dimensions. It calls up a window, and then it enables us to bend that over. Now you're not seeing a lot of topographical relief in here, and that is usually because we haven't changed the scene settings to exaggerate the z-axis. So if I bring this up to about, let's say 8, if I double it and I apply it, now you see you're beginning to get some models. That's not as good as anything that you have in fact, it's not showing up at all. Why is that? Flat plane. No, it's a flat plane, all right. It's 3D, but it's not 3D, and we'll have to figure out in this what it is that we're doing wrong, because in ArcGIS Pro it's very easy to make this work, but here we're not getting much of anything from the DEM. Maybe if I turn on these layers, oh yes, there it is. I turn on my DEMs, then we get weird things happening here. So let's go back to our scene and bring it down to 6. That didn't even work either. Scene settings, bring it down to 1. Yeah, okay. So now you're beginning to see the terrain in there projected from the flat map. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? And then there's adding cameras, and you can look at it from an orthographic, or you can look at it from perspective. Perspective is the one we want. And camera, scene. I guess that's about it. Widgets, navigation, north arrow, header footer labels. So you can enable the north arrow so that you don't get lost when you're looking at it. There's the north arrow down there and then left there, so that would be looking north. So that's a nice plugin to have, obviously. Pretty cool. All right, so that's QGIS to 3GS Exporter. Another one that they asked us to do is DEM to 3D. We did look at that. That's the one that does the 3D printing. Don't need to look at that. Another one's Time Manager. And Time Manager, you'll have to spell when you're looking for it as one word, because if you type in just Time Manager, nothing comes through. But if you leave the space out, then you get Time Manager to create animations. But you'd have to have the spatiotemporal data for Time Manager in a CSV format, and you have to format it correctly. So I'll have to look into how to use Time Manager, but I saw it being used for following leopards around a mountain range by doing a time series of data where they were at a certain time, and then it does an animation for you so you can watch the distribution. So that was pretty cool. Then there's heat map, and there's several different heat maps here. Heat map. I've put in batch heat maps. I've done D3 data visualization, which comes up when we type in heat map. Okay. And density analysis is another one that comes up. Fast density I tried and it wouldn't install properly. Ice tool, easy but real physical estimation of ground temperatures to help treat urban heat islands and create better urban designs, to highlight the urban design choices that reduce urban heat islands. So that's pretty cool, and I think we want to install that plugin and figure out how to use that. I think that could be very useful, particularly for Marrakesh itself. So we've got that, and then we have semi-automatic classification plugin, and again you have to type it in right to find it. So it's semi-automatic classification right there. I've got that one. I don't know about the basin analysis, watershed basin analysis by the Greek legislator for hydrological flow directions raster, filled DEM raster. All this is I'm familiar with ArcGIS Pro, so it's probably good to have that and eventually use that, because in ArcGIS Pro, flow direction, fill direction are very important for flooding analysis. I don't know about this Zetsaka classification tool. It says it's fast and it's easy. Classification with Gaussian, random forest, SVM classifiers. And you have to have the Sitkit team learn library to use these algorithms. But let's take it anyway. It depends on how much memory your machine has. They're all going to be ultimately useful. So I'm just using this list as a guide for it. Then the Atlas plugin is not a plugin that you have to install, so you'll get confused if you start looking for Atlas. You will find Atlas here, and I put in SOAR, the new Atlas, to collaborate in building a new Atlas of the world, but there's already an Atlas in here. When you go to print, under new print layout, and that's a new print layout. Let's open another print layout that I have. Layout manager, layout. So I have one, a print layout. I went to new print layout. I created a print layout for HAF, and then you see up here Atlas. And then you go to settings, and that is where you would you'd put in your whether or not it generates an Atlas or not. That'll be untriggered. If you click it, then it tells you can use a certain configuration layer for your Atlas and then output it somewhere else. This is if you actually want to generate prints of your maps. That's what the Atlas feature is. So you can share those. Just as I said, you can use DEM to 3D to 3D print a model. You can also print handouts using Atlas. So that's useful. And then Data Plotly is the last one that was suggested by QGIS, and Data Plotly enables us to make graphs. So there's Data Plot, didn't come up, Data Plotly. There it is, Data Plotly. All right, that one's already in, and so we have that. There's also this one here, tool to inspire data sets and spatial data package export. We're not going to do that. We're just going to keep Data Plotly that we have. And as you can see here, what we're told is that Data Plotly integrates data visualization directly into QGIS, making it easier to create graphs and charts for your results, which can be useful for communicating your findings to the community. Sometimes two-dimensional graphs and charts can really convey information through simplification. So this is a nice breakdown of why these tools would be important for us for our project, and I've put them in our Envisioning Sustainability Design Laboratory Facebook group, exactly what was said here. So if I go to Envisioning Sustainability for anybody who's in the class, then I've pasted all of this right up in there. Oh, it's disinterlinked. I'm glad. It is cool. All right, and I'm putting a whole bunch of other useful tutorials that I've watched and readings in here for you. So when we go back to ChatGPT, this is a great dialogue to have, to ask it things. For example, I want to ask it right now, would I use Saga and GRASS alone as freestanding programs and go through their learning curves, or by having them on my computer, can I integrate them into my QGIS maps, or rather integrate their processing capabilities? Have this dialogue going. Let's see what it says. You can definitely integrate the processing capabilities directly into QGIS. You have to avoid having to learn each software's unique interface separately, because that was the problem. QGIS acts as a front end for both Saga and GRASS, allowing you to access their powerful tools without leaving the QGIS environment. All right, so integrating Saga. When you've installed QGIS, you have the option to install GRASS.js part of the package. If you didn't install them, you can download and install them separately. It will detect their presence. If you're using the OSGO4W install, you can make sure both Saga and GRASS are selected. Okay. Activate the processing toolbox. And then wide range as well as tools from Saga and GRASS. Once it's open, you'll see them listed as categories. Okay. And the advantage of using Saga and GRASS tools through QGIS can work with the data in one unified environment without exporting or importing between different programs. It handles the data conversions to ensure you're in compatible formats. Compatible with your version. Okay, check the paths. Simplified interface, broad range of tools. Saga is excellent for terrain analysis. GRASS.js is powerful for hydrology and raster operations. Seamless integration. If you need to perform highly specialized operations that aren't well supported in QGIS or require more advanced features, it might be worth diving into the standalone versions. Okay, recommendation. Tree monitoring, water pollution mitigation, suitability analysis, using them through QGIS toolbox is more than sufficient. All right, that's great to know. So apparently we can come in here and go to processing. Where's my processing? Oh, my processing. That's great. Well, the GRASS tools are already there. Look at that. So somehow processing has disappeared. I don't know why. Let's see if I go to view. Paddles. It says GRASS tools. It looks like it's taken over my processing. Database, raster, vector, plugins, settings, layer data source manager. That's the data source manager. What happened to my processing? See MMQGIS, animate, combine. All right. The processing tab has disappeared. I wonder why. And then plugin quick services is disabled because it previously crashed QGIS, so let me enable it. All right. And this one is disabled, so enable that. Planet Explorer. So interesting. And again, we still don't have processing. So I'm going to ask about that. It seems after installing all of these plugins, my processing tab is gone. Where did it go? How do I get it back? Go to the top menu, click on processing. Control-Alt-T. Control-Alt-T, huh? Let's see, Control-Alt-T. That didn't do anything. All right, well, it looks like I had to restart the QGIS program to get processing right here to come back. And we're all right now. We have this new entry, MMQGIS, that has animate and combine and create, buffers, all sorts of great tools that we have in ArcGIS Pro. So it's nice to have MMQGIS. We have the regular processing toolbox, and you can see down here that GRASS is available in QGIS. So that means that we can go to GRASS and we can shut it down because we won't need it. So we'll quit GRASS, but it should still be here so that one can get the various tools from it. And we'll have to learn how to use those. And then Saga is here. Climate tools, air humidity conversions, a lot of really good stuff is in here. And so I can turn off Saga here. So I have these programs and now I have their functionality in my geoprocessing toolbox. I've got also quick OSM. I've got SOAR that I put in for publishing data sets. It's an atlas if you wanted to add to the world's knowledge, which is part of the game. And then the ICE tool. So a lot of good information, even this classification tool, density analysis, all these plugins that I put in are there to be learned. Doing plots. As a scatter plot, looks like it's the only one that can be done right now. Okay, so just a scatter plot. And then QGIS's own processing tools. So very powerful stuff that we have here. And just to look at what you need to then have to be all set up to start this journey, you should see Project, you should see Edit, you should see View. View will let you access your various panels if you want to have more of them, like Processing Toolbox disappeared. And if you want to call it up, then you can bring up the toolbox on the right there from View and bring any of them up in there. GPS toolbar is there. So you go to View to be able to enable and disable various toolbars. There's the GRASS toolbar is there. As you can see with View and toolbar, and then there's GRASS. And then when we go to View, toolbar, and then GRASS, then GRASS comes up, I guess. This is welcome to Planet. So play around with that. What happened with GRASS? What does GRASS do? GRASS doesn't seem to do anything. That's interesting. View, toolbar, GRASS. Don't know. All right, and then you have the ability to view So panels and toolbars, so all those are available. Then you should have layer, and you should have settings, plugins. It's where you find all your plugins, and some of them will show up here to toggle their visibility right from the plugin menu. Others will not. Vector, analysis tools, data management, research tools, geoprocessing tools. So there's some other ones in there, and quick OSM. And then raster information. There's where our DEM to 3D printing showed up. So some of the plugins show up in different menus. That's why I'm showing you this, because you won't always know where is that plugin. Database Manager, Web. This plugin showed up for the data visualization, heat map, the Planet Explorer, the QGIS to 3JS is right there, and then Quick Map Services has a whole bunch here. Note, by the way, Quick Map Services will not show up with anything until you go to Settings, and then you want to go to More Services and get the contributed pack. So if you don't download the last version of the contributed pack, nothing will show up. So it's not evident to people. And then enable on adding AMS, put that on. You don't have to mess with most of these things, but More Services you definitely have to go to. That is the only way then when you get to Quick Map Services, you will see a list of services that you can use. So you have to have that. Then comes a mesh calculator. I've never used that. Then there's this new one, MMQGIS, that has animate lines, combine, create, geocode, import, and modify, projections, changing, and then processing. And that's where your toolbox is, and your vital model designer, which is like the model builder in ArcQGIS. And we'll get into that. And that's now what I have in here, so that we can get started. And what I was told by ChatGPT is that the recommendation is that we start, as you can see here, right, that you start with a good map. So it says start with hands-on activities, involve plotting, introduce more advanced features, use local data, base maps. Once you install Quick Map Services, load high-resolution satellite imagery or topographic maps immediately, because they're going to be the foundation of your analysis. And then it's also saying we should set it to the appropriate system for Morocco, EPS 32630, and I've got to see how we do that. But let's say that we're going to start a new project. So you go to new, we can save that. Just want to show you very briefly what it looks like once you've got all these plugins here. You start out with a map. Oh, my mouse is failing. Why is my mouse failing? I think the battery might be dying. So yeah, the mouse is stopped. All right, well anyway, I can use my touchpad. But when you start out, so the first thing that you are going to do is put in a map, and the map is best found under plugins, and then web, and then Quick Map Services, and then find a really good map. So I like to use the Google Hybrid, for example, and then I've got a map that I can start with and use. And now, because my mouse is no longer working, I'm going to have to stop this and fix my my mouse, and then I can continue this exploration. So I hope that is helpful in some small way in getting set up for QGIS.